Did you know the 1950s weren't just sock hops and space rockets, but also a decade where forgotten filmmakers sharpened suspense like a switchblade? While Hollywood cheered Technicolor epics, a shadowy roster of mystery thrillers slipped through the cracks, smuggling radical ideas beneath noir lighting. Tonight, we're threading 13 of those lost reels back onto the projector to expose the secrets they kept and the future they quietly invented. Smash that like, subscribe, and let's step into the darkness together. The Prowler, 1951. A porch light flickers, a woman in a silk robe calls the police, and a bored patrolman morphs from guardian to predator before our eyes. That unsettling pivot powers Joseph Losey's taboo thriller, daring to whisper that the uniform might be the real monster. Officer Webb Garwood answers a voyeur complaint, flirts, returns uninvited, and drags heiress Susan Gilvray into adultery, fraud, and murder, an autopsy of suburbia's soft underbelly. Losey, weeks from HUAC exile, shoots tract houses like crime scenes, parking the camera low as though crawling with the peeper outside. Hidden fact: the screenplay was doctored by blacklisted writer Dalton Trumbo, paid through a secret front. His clandestine pages added the third act shock, Susan's childbirth in a ghost town hotel, while the rest of Hollywood sang in Technicolor. What sets this film apart is sound, or its absence. Losey murders the score during killings, forcing audiences to hear anxious breathing and heels scraping tile, details censors never clipped. Cinematographer Arthur C. Miller overexposes daylight, declaring that corruption no longer hides in alleys, it lounges in the sun. Opening against MGM's juggernaut Quo Vadis, the picture died, condemned to third bill dust. Yet its DNA pulses through Fatal Attraction and Gone Girl, proving suburbia grew fangs here first. Marketing execs later confessed they had no idea how to sell a thriller that attacked the sacred policeman, so they buried it at drive-ins and hoped no one noticed the body. The Sniper, 1952. Before Dirty Harry terrorized San Francisco, The Sniper had the city ducking in doorways. Director Edward Dmytryk, fresh from HUAC prison, channels fury into this lean portrait of Eddie Miller, a lonely laundry truck driver who sights random women through a rifle scope. The opening montage is uncannily modern. A telescopic lens sweeps sun-drenched apartments while jazz drifts from a bar, and a bullet cracks the afternoon calm. Dmytryk covers the city guerrilla style. No permissions, just handheld cameras, real cable car clangs, masking gunfire. Hidden fact: it's Hollywood's first crime pick to employ a police psychologist. His notes birthed a radical scene where Miller begs a clinic for help and is turned away, highlighting mental health gaps so effectively that San Francisco PD added psychiatric units the very next year. The killer's POV, tight, circular, predatory, invented a technique later borrowed by Halloween and Full Metal Jacket. Timing doomed the film. It opened a week after The Greatest Show on Earth, and the press chose circus elephants over psychological autopsy. The Sniper vanished until a 1997 restoration stunned festivals, revealing the lonely shooter blueprint hiding in plain sight. Today, its eerie quiet feels prophetic, an uncomfortable rehearsal for headlines we still grapple with, making its neglect all the more haunting. The Hitchhiker, 1953. A Baja highway, two pals on a fishing trip, and a thumb in the mirror. That's all Ida Lupino needed to craft the only classic era noir directed by a woman. Based on real serial killer Billy Cook, the film locks its heroes in a sun-baked Oldsmobile with death-riding shotgun. Lupino shoots guerrilla style in the desert. The horizon itself becomes a prison wall. Dialogue is minimal, engine noise relentless, and every clack of the villain's revolver cylinder lands like a countdown. Hidden fact: Lupino cashed in her Beverly Hills home to self-finance, then bypassed studios by renting prints directly to Route 66 drive-ins, an indie distribution hack decades ahead of its time. What sets it apart is brutal minimalism. No score, just wind howling through a broken window. A single dome light carving terror into sweaty faces. the killer's lazy eye forcing actors to choose which pupil to confront. RKO collapsed months after release, misfiling the negative as travel footage. Critics rediscovered it in the 90s, but by then, road crime cinema wore Tarantino's badge. Watch it today, and you'll see No Country for Old Men on training wheels, proof the highway was claustrophobic long before Cheeger flipped a coin. Modern restorations now reveal eerie details, a rosary on the mirror, cartridges rattling in the glove box, underlining Lupino's ruthless vision of fate hitching a ride with us all. 99 River Street, 1953. Imagine Rocky if the hero never got his title shot and instead staggered into a midnight murder frame-up. Ex-boxer Ernie Driscoll drives a taxi through Manhattan's steam, jaw wired, dreams shattered. When his unfaithful wife turns up dead beside a jeweler boyfriend, every cop tags Ernie as prime suspect. Director Phil Carlson stretches Poverty Row resources into bravura set pieces, a barroom slugfest, a rainy pier showdown, and a chase under the 3rd Avenue L that rattles like a freight train. Hidden fact: star John Payne broke 2 ribs performing his own alley brawl so the camera could stay rolling, beating Brando's method bruises by a year. What sets the movie apart is a legendary rehearsal scene. Evelyn Keyes fakes a confession in one frantic, unbroken take, tricking first-time viewers into thinking they'd stumbled into documentary footage. Carlson lights the dingy backstage room like a newsroom, uses no music, and pioneers verite grit a decade early. From Here to Eternity stole the box office spotlight 72 hours later, and most prints of 99 River Street were recycled for silver. When Scorsese screened a pristine copy in 2004, students swore its handheld chase felt more alive than anything in Jason Bourne. The film proves grit, not budget, lands the knockout punch, even if Hollywood never tallied the scorecards. Private Hell 36, 1954. The title sounds like a mailbox, and that's deliberate. Director-writer Ida Lupino and co-star Don Siegel wanted us to feel we'd opened someone else's dirty mail. 2 LAPD detectives pocket half a robbery haul just until the paperwork clears, then watch fate tighten like a tourniquet. Lupino shoots cheap motels as confession booths. Leith Stevens' lonely trumpet echoes through every moral collapse. Hidden fact: the prop money was real. Columbia borrowed freshly printed bills under armed guard for authentic ink tones, searching crew daily. One grip tried to slip a 50 into his boot and was fired, an incident Lupino rewrote into a key scene. What sets the film apart is perspective. Halfway through, the narrative hands the mic to Lupino's nightclub singer, inventing the femme fatale narrator decades before Basic Instinct. She guides us through a brutal foot chase down Skid Row. No doubles, just actors sprinting past real vagrants who thought the cops were genuine. Test audiences hated the ambiguous ending, so Columbia hacked 12 minutes and buried the picture beneath drive-in monster fare. Recently rediscovered reels reveal a bleaker finale where everyone loses, even a child who finds the cash in a sandbox. Watch the restored cut and you'll realize guilt sticks like tar long after you wash your hands. Shield for Murder, 1954. Long before training day, Lieutenant Barney Nolan shot a bookmaker, pocketed $25,000, and called it self-defense. Star Edmund O'Brien co-directs, choreographing fights so savage the stunt coordinator quit, calling them unfilmable. The opening pan shadows Nolan through rain-slick streets into a back alley, shooting filmed in one breathless take. Hidden fact: the bar brawl shattered real mirror glass. O'Brien's blood in the shot is genuine. The sequence, captured handheld, later inspired Riffife's Rooftop Mayhem. What sets the film apart is sound. Composer Paul Dunlap drops a mambo under the poolside gunfight, predicting Tarantino needle drops by 40 years. Cinematographer Gordon Avil straps the camera to a dolly skimming an empty swimming pool, the low-angle glide Spielberg borrowed for Jaws' beach panic. Released 11 months late, it drowned in the wake of On the Waterfront. Yet its DNA flows through L.A., Confidential and Street Kings, stories where the badge is the villain. Watch it now, and you'll learn the only gun scarier than the crooks is the one holstered by the man sworn to protect you. The Night Holds Terror, 1955. A simple act of kindness, giving a stranger a lift, mutates into a home invasion, hostage ordeal, and media circus in real time. Director Andrew Stone adapts a headline crime, filming on the actual victim's property, and timing scenes to a ticking clock that appears on screen. The result feels like a live broadcast: shaky flashlights, frightened kids, and villains who talk too quietly for comfort. Hidden fact: the FBI demanded script approval. Stone refused. Agents planted themselves on set, eventually advising radio jargon and earning uncredited cameos, injecting a documentary texture. What sets the film apart is pacing. Every act's timestamp syncs audience pulse with the hostage's dread. Stone hires a lone jazz drummer for rim-shot tension and lights rooms with nothing but household lamps, making every fridge bulb a potential reveal. Columbia tried marketing via television spots, but stations balked at showing terrified children, so the picture slipped onto drive-in double bills and was mislabeled a teen delinquent flick. Spielberg later cited it while prepping Munich, praising its ticking clock anxiety. Watch it today, and you'll recognize the blueprint for Panic Room and Don't Breathe. The notion that terror can park right in your driveway was born here. Then Hollywood hurried to bury the evidence. Nightfall, 1957. Snow blankets. Wyoming, but the real chill seeps from a suitcase stuffed with stolen cash. Insurance salesman Jim Vanning and war medic Bill Walden stumble on a crashed car, lift the loot to save the unconscious driver, then discover the owner still alive and homicidal. The film ricochets between sun-splashed Los Angeles streets and frozen forests in flashbacks that feel like half-remembered nightmares. Director Jacques Tourneur, master of shadow and cat people, flips his palette. Daylight now hides the threat, not darkness. He shoots actors half-blinded by winter glare, an offbeat choice that turns every snowdrift into a sensory trap. Hidden fact: Columbia forced Tourneur to cast fashion model Anne Bancroft in her first major screen role. She learned lines phonetically at night because she was still walking runways by day. Cinematographer Burnett Guffey drifted filming permits and grabbed guerrilla shots in Union Station, setting microphones inside vending machines so passengers chattermasks exposition, a proto-found sound technique. The picture's stark outdoor violence clashed with 1957's squeaky clean Eisenhower mood, so marketers pushed it as a romance and critics shrugged. Yet its DNA fertilized modern thrillers. Quentin Tarantino copied the diner dialogue rhythm for Reservoir Dogs, and Nolan cites its cross-cutting structure as a seed for Memento. Watch the restoration, and you'll see the terror isn't what lurks at night, it's what follows you into the light. The Burglar, 1957. Imagine Ocean's 11 with no tuxedos, only sweat-stained undershirts and a stolen emerald burning holes in pockets. Professional thief Nat Harbin leads a small crew and one vulnerable teenage girl through a break-in at a Philadelphia spiritualist mansion. Director Paul Wendkos opens with a 9-minute silent robbery filmed in true widescreen long before studios trusted noir with CinemaScope. Cameras slide through dark corridors like partners in crime. One unbroken crane shot glides across rooftops, so fluid, modern viewers assume it's a drone. Hidden fact: Wendkos bribed real carnival operators in Atlantic City for the dizzying Hall of Mirrors climax. They shut rides at 2 a.m., killed half the lights, and let cameras whirl until dawn. Actors sprint genuinely lost among spinning mirrors, the set so confusing that crew painted exit arrows on the floor. What sets the film apart is tempo. Instead of pounding music, composer Saul Kaplan writes heartbeat rhythms on muted drums, syncing score to Harbin's pulse logged by a prop finger monitor, a primitive biofeedback trick. Columbia buried the movie after Sweet Smell of Success hogged press, then sold TV rights where cropped frames killed its widescreen tension. Scorsese screened a 35mm print for Goodfellas cast rehearsals, telling Ray Liotta, "This is how panic sounds inside a thief's skull." Today, The Burglar proves a heist's worst moment isn't the break-in. It's what greed does when daylight finally crawls in. Murder by Contract, 1958. Claude, a rail-thin loner with monk-like discipline, decides contract killing is just an efficient way to earn a house. He jogs by sunrise, practices guitar for finger strength, and studies targets like math problems. Director Irving Lerner strips plot to bone, Los Angeles streetlights, bare motel rooms, and a guitar-only score by Perry Botkin that ticks like a metronome. Claude's philosophy, no guns, too emotional, makes strangulation scenes unnerving spasms of silence. Hidden fact, future Oscar winner Martin Scorsese screened a bootleg copy at NYU and later lifted its moving camera ambush shot frame for frame in Taxi Driver. The film's $89,000 budget forced Lerner to borrow lenses from a UCLA lab at night, then sneak them back by dawn. Smudges on unpolished glass give close-ups a ghostly halo that fans long mistook for deliberate style. The last act, set in an empty fog-soaked Echo Park boathouse, was lit with car headlights after the generator quit, creating dreamlike beams critics now praise as accidental German expressionism. Columbia passed the film off as a B-side to a monster double feature, so most audiences arrived halfway through. Yet its lean cynicism reshaped crime cinema. Tarantino cites Claude's cool detachment as the spiritual father of Mr. White. Strip away the decade's moral lectures, and you'll find Murder by Contract whispering the darker question modern thrillers still fear to ask: what if professionalism is pure emptiness wearing a suit? Cry Terror, 1958. A stranger in a cafe hands post-war electronics whiz Jim Molnar a matchbook, then vanishes. Inside, microscript wiring diagrams and a threat to build radio-controlled bombs for an airline extortion plot. Director Andrew L. Stone shoots entirely on location, real New York subways, flats, and rooftop ledges, lugging a 35mm rig so heavy actors sweated rivulets matching their panic. James Mason, usually suave, unravels here with trembling intensity, while Rod Steiger chews softly, his voice a whisper deadlier than a shout. Hidden fact, Stone convinced the NYC Transit Authority to run an empty subway at 3 a.m., allowing cinematographer Walter Stringe to mount cameras on roller skate rigs for gliding POV shots. Tech never attempted underground again until The French Connection. The film plants the first cinematic homemade plastic explosive, inspiring later heist scripts. Its climax features real dynamite. Explosives experts wired a deadman switch to Mason's wrist, so if he slipped, the charge would never arm. Insurance execs called it the most expensive wristwatch in movie history. Reviews fixated on Steiger's too realistic kidnappings, leading MGM to pull city ads after a rash of copycat bomb hoaxes. Overshadowed by Hitchcock's glossy Vertigo, Cry Terror vanished into late-night TV. Yet watch it now, and you'll hear the heartbeat of modern hostage thrillers, from Speed to Inside Man, thudding in every rattling subway car. The Lineup, 1958. San Francisco's cable cars ring innocent, but Don Siegel's camera rides them like predators. Expanding a police procedural TV show, he throws small-time tourists into a heroin-smuggling pipeline hidden inside souvenir dolls. Psychopath Dancer, played with reptilian calm by Eli Wallach, and his handler Julian stalk the city, turning postcard views into killing grounds. Siegel secures early helicopters to film a hair-raising car chase along the unfinished Embarcadero Freeway, tires skidding where guardrails never existed. Hidden fact. The stunt driver was a local cabbie paid $400 and 2 traffic tickets forgiven. He practiced once at dawn, then burned rubber in live traffic because the crew lacked permits. Siegel wired microphones inside trunk spaces, capturing muffled screams that gave editors nightmare fuel once amplified. Composer Misha Bakalainikov ditches melody for snare drum taps echoing boot heels, foreshadowing Lalo Schifrin's Dirty Harry Pulse. Columbia slotted the film under drive-in westerns, misreading its urban menace. In 1971, Siegel screened it for Clint Eastwood, who clocked Dancer's ice-cold head tilt and borrowed it for Harry's squint. Today, every crooked tourist thriller, from Taken to Bad Times at the El Royale, owes a debt to the lineup's stark warning: paradise is just a camera angle from hell. Odds Against Tomorrow, 1959. A snow-capped bank in upstate New York promises easy cash until race hatred melts the plan. Ex-cop Earl Slater, bitter and broke, partners with black casino singer Johnny Ingram under veteran planner Dave Burke. Director Robert Wise fuses noir with social drama, framing the trio against bleak winter skies that mirror their moral freeze. John Lewis of the Modern Jazz Quartet writes a cool, nervous score whose vibraphone pings mimic alarm bells nobody hears. Hidden fact: producer Harry Belafonte, a civil rights firebrand, secretly bankrolled reshoots when United Artists tried cutting explicit racist slurs. He stashed footage in his garage, forcing the studio to release the unfiltered version or scrap the picture. Wise adopted handheld Arriflex cameras from European news crews, sneaking shots inside real Harlem bars where neighborhood patrons became extras for free drinks. The climactic fuel terminal explosion used 600 gallons of gasoline. The fireball soared higher than planned, scorching nearby billboards and halting traffic on the Hudson Parkway. Critics praised the jazz but ducked the racial tension, and Southern theaters refused bookings, strangling box office chances. Yet its legacy looms. Spike Lee screened it for Inside Man writers, and Catherine Bigelow credits its doomed camaraderie for Point Break's baptism by fire ending. Odds Against Tomorrow whispers one final lesson modern thrillers rarely admit. Sometimes the real ticking bomb is the hatred you bring with you to the job. If these 13 lost gems stirred your pulse, share the video, drop your own forgotten favorite in the comments, and keep those notifications on, because the shadows of cinema still hide countless stories begging for light.